The wind slammed the saloon doors against the wall so hard the lanterns rattled. Dust rolled in like a living thing, swallowing the street outside, turning noon into a rust-colored storm. Through that storm walked a man no one recognized, coat heavy with desert grime, boots striking the floor like he was counting down something. He didn't ask for a drink. He didn't ask for a room. He slid a thick stack of bills across the counter with a gloved hand. "I'll take it," he said. The barkeep stared as if he'd been handed a dead rattlesnake. "Take what?" "That land. The Hale place." A silence swallowed every sound in the room. Chairs stopped creaking. Cards froze midair. Someone whispered a prayer. The stranger didn't blink. Clara Hale was standing near the back. Holding a ledger, she suddenly forgot how to read. Her heart hammered once hard. The Hale place? That land was hers, and no one had touched it since the day her husband died on it. She stepped forward, voice low, sharp breaking. "You paid just to do that." He turned, storm gray, eyes meeting hers like they already knew her story. Like they'd been waiting. "Yes," he said. "Only that." Gasps fluttered through the room. A man coughed like he was choking on the truth. Clara's jaw clenched. "That land's cursed. Men have died for less than you just spent. Why would anyone throw money at a grave?" The stranger didn't answer. He just picked up the deed, folded it once, and slipped it into his coat like it was nothing but a receipt. Outside, the wind howled hard enough to lift the edges of his coat like wings. The barkeep leaned close, voice shaking. "Sir, you understand that land ends men. Whole families. That was why I paid for it," the stranger said, already walking toward the door. Clara followed. Couldn't stop herself. She shoved the door open and stepped into the dust after him. "You think you're proving something?" she shouted. "My husband died on that land, trying to fight the same fight you think you're walking into." The stranger paused on the steps. Didn't turn. "That's why I'm here." She stared, breath caught somewhere between rage and disbelief. "You paid just to do this?" she whispered. He finally looked at her, like he was measuring the weight of her grief, her memory, her life. "No," he said. "I paid because no one else ever would." And then he walked into the storm. The doors swung shut behind him like the last word in a sentence no one understood. Inside the saloon, no one moved. No one breathed. But everyone felt it. Something old had just woken. Something unfinished had just returned. And every soul in town could sense it. That stranger didn't buy land. He bought a war. Clara's lantern light cut through the dark like a blade as she stepped into the ruined Hale barn. The stranger was already there, kneeling in the dust, sleeves rolled up, hammer in hand. Broken boards lay scattered around him, but every piece he touched was measured, precise, like he was rebuilding a church, not a barn. "You paid all that money," Clara said, voice trembling with anger. "Just to fix wood and dirt?" He didn't look at her, didn't stop. "I paid because someone has to." Clara's breath shook. Her husband had said words like that once, right before they buried him. She moved closer, fist tight. "Who told you to finish his work? Who sent you?" "No one sent me." The hammer stopped midair. His voice was low, worn, pulled from a place that had seen too many graves. "I owed him." Clara froze. The only sound was a board settling under the stranger's weight and the wind trying to force its way through the broken door. "You knew him," she whispered. The stranger set the hammer down. Slow, careful, as if the act itself carried memory. "I knew the man he used to be, before the fight, before they came." Clara felt her throat close. Her knees weakened, but she refused to let them give. "Then why didn't you show your face while he was alive?" A long, aching silence. "I wasn't the man I should have been back then either." She hated the answer, hated that it didn't sound like a lie. Later, as midnight settled on the ranch like a shroud, Clara lingered outside the barn, hidden by shadow. The stranger sat alone on the barn floor, staring at an old photograph. Her husband, younger, laughing, alive. One of those rare moments she thought no one else in the world remembered. He touched the picture with a hand that trembled just once. "I'm not too late this time," he said to no one. Clara pressed her hand against her mouth to keep from making sound. The chain on the gate rattled in the wind. Coyotes howled far off. Somewhere in the dark, a gun cocked. Not his. The stranger didn't look scared. He looked ready. Clara stepped into the light. They're coming, aren't they? The same men who killed him. He nodded once. And you think you can stop them alone? No, he said. I know I can. For the first time, Clara saw it clearly, not madness. Not desperation. Training. Purpose. A man sharpened like a blade. She stared at the barn, at the boards he'd set, the way he had rebuilt the place, as if preparing for something unavoidable. You're expecting a war, she whispered. No, he said, eyes hard as iron. I'm expecting them to finish the one they started. The first horse appeared at dawn, then another, then 6 more, black silhouettes against the bleeding horizon. Guns visible, faces covered, no hesitation in their movements. They rode like they'd already decided who would die today. Clara stood on the porch, breath trapped in her chest, as the riders fanned out across her land like vultures. Her hands shook, not from fear but memory. She had seen these men before. These exact horses. These exact eyes. The same men who buried her husband. Inside the barn, the stranger didn't look at the window or the approaching riders. Instead, he finished latching the final hinge he'd reforged through the night, then quietly slid the hammer into a tool chest, like he'd been waiting for this moment to breathe. Clara burst inside. They're here. All of them. You can't do this alone. The stranger still didn't look up. I never said I was alone. His hand brushed the fabric of his coat, then stopped. Not reaching for a gun, just adjusting. As if the weapon wasn't something he needed, just something that happened to be there. Clara stared at him. Something clicked. Every movement he made, every measured breath, was practiced. Controlled. Not a drifter. Not a ranch hand. A soldier. A gunslinger. A man who had already survived wars nobody else did. He finally looked at her. Do you know what they did after they killed your husband? Clara's voice broke. I know they walked away laughing. No, he said. They didn't walk away. He nodded toward the riders. He did. One horse stood apart from the others. Larger. Meaner. The man on it sat straight-backed, steady, like he owned the sky. The one who had given the order. The one who had watched Clara's husband bleed. Her blood went cold. You came for him, she whispered. Not the land. I paid for the land, the stranger said, so I could choose where he dies. A gust of wind swept dust across the yard. The riders drew closer, hooves shaking the earth. Clara's voice trembled. You're not doing this for me. You're doing it because you couldn't save him. The stranger looked at her, not with guilt, with a grief so deep it had carved him into steel. I'm doing it because he saved me. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Then the riders reached the gate. The leader spit chewing tobacco into the dirt and smiled like nothing in the world could touch him. Well, he called out, looks like someone bought himself a grave. The stranger stepped through the barn doors, coat drifting in the wind behind him. No, he said, voice calm as a church bell. I bought myself a chance. And every man there, friend or enemy, felt it. The war wasn't coming. It was already here. Gunfire cracked before the sun fully rose. Sharp, controlled, and impossibly precise. The barn door swung open on its reinforced hinges as the stranger moved through smoke like he'd rehearsed every second of this moment years ago. His shots weren't wild, not one wasted. Each bullet landed like it had learned its target's name before it fired. Men fell before they even realized they were in a fight. Clara watched from the ground, palms pressed to the dirt she once feared. A bullet ricocheted off a fence post inches from her head. The world shook. Horses screamed. The leader bellowed orders no one lived long enough to follow. And still, through dust and gun smoke, the stranger's pace never changed. Silent, steady, certain, he moved like a soldier. He killed like a legend. Then all at once the firing stopped. The leader stood alone now, panting, rage boiling under his skin. Smoke curled around his boots like the devil had come to collect a debt. You don't even know what this is about, he spat. The stranger stepped closer. Calm, breathing steady, gun lowered. I know exactly what this is about, he said. You killed a man who was better than all of us. The leader sneered and fired 3 fast shots, missed every one. The stranger didn't fire back. He just walked toward him. And the man who had murdered without blinking, the man who'd owned this fear for years, stepped backward. You ain't him, the leader snarled. You ain't the man I killed. No, the stranger said. I'm the one he saved. One final gunshot echoed across the land, and then there was only wind. Claire didn't speak for a long time. She stood among the bodies, eyes burning, heart raw, not sure whether to thank him or scream at him or fall apart in his arms. The stranger finally turned toward her, eyes heavy, not proud, not vicious, just tired. She stepped forward, voice barely a breath. Why did you do it? Why pay? Why come back now when you couldn't before? His answer wasn't a speech or a confession, just a truth laid bare. Because your husband once carried me out of a battlefield when everyone else left me to die. And I promised him I'd protect what mattered most to him. Clara felt her knees give, not from shock, not even grief, from understanding. Slowly, she sank to the dirt, hands trembling, eyes full, and whispered the words without thinking. Then stay and be mine. The stranger said nothing, but his silence was not rejection. It was reverence. Old folks still whisper the tale today, how a widow married the man who came to finish a war no one else remembered, how the Hale land stayed free, how justice took root in dust. They say heroes die, but legends? Legends keep their promises.